Hello and welcome, friends. This is Paul Sandhu. This video that I just posted, I have two YouTube channels now. Before I used to have one, which was terminated, and that is the exact word that they used. My channel was terminated because of alleged violations of YouTube's community guidelines back in February of this year, which is 2018. And this video that I was re-uploading, I re-uploaded it to my Flat Earth Truths channel, and it was up for a couple of days, and then there was there was some sort of copyright dispute that was filed, because of which it was blocked. I contested that dispute, but they came back and said no, the copyright holder has banned your video, so it's been blocked worldwide. So today again I tried to re-upload it on my my Bible studies channel. And the same thing, it says it's blocked worldwide. As you can see in the screenshot, it says there is some kind of claimant has a copyright claim. How long the copyright claim is? It's a clip that is 46 seconds long. I don't think there's any law in this world that can justify such a blockage, okay? Because you are allowed for educational purposes to use like small clips, as long as the person or the author is given credit, and that's all that needs to be done. Because when you are making an educational video, and that's what this is, it's being made for non-profit purposes. There's no charge to this. It is freely available to anybody, and because of a 46-second clip, that it has to be blocked worldwide. So that is a clear case of censorship on YouTube, which is now seems to be, moving into a high gear now, where even really silly little alleged violations result in videos being blocked. And that is not just been happening to me, it's been happening to other people. Channels have been terminated, etc. And what is the conclusion we can draw from it? The conclusion is that this world is a world of lies. The Bible tells us in 1 John, chapter 5, that the whole world lies in wickedness, because it is managed and controlled by the God of this world, who is the father of lies. So lies are welcome on YouTube and Google and on the internet, but the truth is not. And that is the reason why all the shenanigans or all these hoopla has been going on about Russia allegedly interfering in the U.S. elections, which is just another one of these fake stories, because everything in the news is fake, everything. Now, I used to think that some things are true, but now I am of the conclusion that 99.9% of it is untrue, and probably 90% is just pure fiction. Okay, they just pull these stories out of a hat somewhere, or to serve some kind of people that are sitting there making these stories up at the behest of their unseen masters to further some sort of agenda. And the agenda here, of course, is to censor the internet. It is not necessarily to control the internet. The elites and their unseen spirit rulers, the Bible calls them devils, okay, led by Satan, the chief devil of all. They want the internet to spread lies. They want everything on the internet to be fake. Therefore, in this world, which is like the Orwellian double speak, where the ministry of truth is only concerned with lies, what they want is, when they say, we don't want fake news, what they mean is that they only want fake news and they don't want any truth on it whatsoever. So what I've done is, I have now, in that 46 second, I have removed the video, okay? I have left the picture, the screenshot, to show you what it was about. And basically it was just the picture of, videos of this carousel, like a theme park ride. That's all it was, okay? But it proved a point. And that is the problem with YouTube and their censorship policies, because YouTube, Google, any other major news outlet, even the minor ones nowadays, the alternative ones for the most part as well, they are, of course, very controlled. And only fake news is allowed on there. So this should, give you at least some pause for thought, that, if people like work like mine is being censored, and because of absolutely no reason whatsoever, because if this went to court, I don't think they would YouTube would lose, because a 46-second clip should not, in an hour-long video, should not justify it being blocked worldwide. Okay? So therefore, pause for thought. Think, what we're being taught here, is there a possibility that what you're being taught is the truth? And therefore, it is being attacked. Okay? Hope you enjoy the video. Thank you for listening. It's Paul Sandhu. Anyhow, before I start playing that video, I thought I would read a little bit from the legal disclaimer that was at the beginning of the video that has been blocked worldwide twice by YouTube, although it was on my old channel and it wasn't blocked then, and it had, like I said, some 20,000 views, and most people had really, received it very, very positively, because I believe that the information in it, whether you agree with the earth being flat or not, it raised some very good questions which science has not been able to answer, and I don't think they have the answers for it. But anyhow, this is a legal disclaimer, okay, that was at the very beginning of the video. It says, regarding copyright law, any video from our channel may or may not at any time contain, in full or in part, a series or multiple series of derivative works which are legal under fair use law. The fair use provisions outlined in Title 17, Chapter 01, Article 107 of the U.S. copyright law states the following. Notwithstanding the provisions of Section 106 and 106A, the fair use of a copyrighted work, including such use by reproduction, in copies or phone records, or by any other means specified by that section, for purposes, now listen to this here, such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, including multiple copies for classroom use, scholarship, or research, is not an infringement of copyright. In determining whether the use made of a work in any particular case is a fair use, the factors to be considered shall include the following. Number one, the purpose and character of the use, including whether such use is of a commercial nature or is for nonprofit educational purposes. Okay? My works are always for nonprofit educational purposes. They are never to be sold. I don't sell anything. Okay? Nothing is for profit. I hope that people who watch them, they do profit by gaining their knowledge, by having their knowledge and understanding increase, but I don't charge any money for any of my works. The nature of the copyrighted work, the amount and substantiality, look at this number 3, the amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole. So I use like a 46-second clip, and the work itself is like some 15 minutes long. So you tell me, was that clip in there substantially longer? Was that the majority of the video? Of course it wasn't. Okay, so what's the options here to people like myself? Well, the only option is that we can try and go after YouTube and start lawsuits, etc. But most people like me, we are just working, just basically working schmucks, and we don't have the means to do all that, and that is why YouTube gets away with what is blatantly illegal under the own laws of the United States. Okay, and when they do these things, they may not answer to any man, but believe you me, one day, all of you guys that actually do the censoring, you are going to answer to a higher authority. His name is the Lord God Almighty, who gives you the very breath that you breathe, and you shall see, when you stand in his court, we shall see who shall then come to your defense. Okay? The amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole, and the effect of the use upon potential market for the value or value of the copyrighted work. Was there any kind of loss to them? Zero. As a matter of fact, this video that I found it on YouTube, is everywhere. You can easily go and watch it. It's there. So you take a little clip from it and they say no, or we're going to block your video worldwide. Anyways, I just wanted to read that legal disclaimer, which is, usually I put that in all my videos whenever I'm using some kind of little clip or something. And, it is always, should never be blocked on copyright grounds. Never, ever. Any of my work should not be. But yet, so many have been. And the only reason is that the Ministry of Truth does not value truth. Thank you. Thank you for listening to my little rant here. Hello and welcome. This is Paul Sandhu Today I wanted to, actually a couple of days ago or maybe a week ago or so, I posted a video titled "A Globehead Tries to Disprove Flat Earth and Fails Miserably, Part 1." I do intend to do Part 2 to that one soon, but in the meantime I'd also wanted to do another video on the subject of the flat Earth. It's over 2 years now that I have been researching the subject of the flat Earth, and I've been sharing many of my findings on my channel and in the playlist that is titled Flat Earth. There are, several videos that deal with this subject. And what I have now come to understand is that the more we research, the more questions we have, in particular in regards to what has been essentially indoctrinated into us since the day we are born, that we are actually living in a spinning globe. And in this video here, without any disrespect to anyone, I just want to ask some questions. And I hope that rather than people getting confrontational and filled with vitriol in their comments and, being very derogatory, they would attempt to give us a real scientific explanation of these phenomena that we observe on this earth, which are governed by the laws of physics, yet the model of the globe, defies all these laws. So the biggest physical object that we can interact with personally is the earth. Okay, and on this earth we have some observations that we make, from which we devise experiments through by which we come to understand, we formulate laws called the laws of physics, or the laws of the physical world, okay, that we live in. And yet we are expected to believe that the biggest physical object that any of us are going to ever see or interact with directly, which is the earth. It defies all these laws. Okay, and the one law that I'm going to speak in particularly is about the law of water. That water cannot curve. It cannot curve, and it cannot be kept spinning in and without any sort of containment and be expected to remain clinging to the surface without flying off into space. These are phenomena that defy the law of physics. So I know a lot of people comment, oh, go take a course in physics. Well, these are questions of physics. So if you are a physicist, then please answer the questions. And that's all we are trying to do is, as a group, we are trying to get better understanding of the world that we live in. We have better understanding of the phenomena that govern the how the objects react and interact, and how things function in the world that we live in this earth that we live upon. That's all we are trying to do. We are trying to find real answers. It is not to pick a fight. It is not to disrespect other people's understanding or beliefs. It is just to question that which you have been taught. And if these questions cannot be answered, then perhaps we need to look at models that more satisfactorily give us the answer to these problems, scientific answers, rather than dogmatically clinging to a belief system which is not supported by observation, by experimentation, or by science. No man has ever seen water curve as you're looking at on the picture. This picture, of course, is a distortion caused by a fisheye lens. But when you look at it, you understand the problem with this, that this water cannot curve like this, because it will obviously flow down on all sides till it finds its level. This is true of all liquids and fluids, even like liquids such as honey, which have a great deal of viscosity. They will always seek, you can take a bottle of honey and pour it on a curved surface, and you will see that it will not just stay there. It will flow down till it finds its level. And since water is not as the viscosity of water is not as great, say, that of honey or of a motor oil, it very readily seeks to find its level. That's what we observe. And science is observation, and then you formulate experiments to confirm the observation. And once the experiments have been done and they have been repeated, then it becomes a law. So that is a law that water does not curve. This picture that you're looking at is an impossibility. And we understand this because this is a small segment, that this would be impossible for this water to remain curved like that. Yet, in the globe model, that is exactly what we are expected to believe, that, three-quarters or nearly three-quarters of the Earth, in one side of it in particular, the Pacific Ocean side, which is a half a hemisphere pretty much, is all curved like this. The explanation that we are given is that, of course, of gravity and the fact that the Earth is spinning, and that's what the gravity combined with the spin manages to magically keep this water clinging to the surface of the Earth. Now, the problem that we'll see, okay, let me just show you. I'm going to play a little video clip here that will explain this phenomenon of how spinning water can be spun without it actually spilling out of a container. The problem is that the Earth is not a container, as we shall see, okay? So let's take a look at this explanation from a physics person that is trying to explain to you like how water can be spun and yet not fly off into space, using the example of water in a bucket. I'll show you another clip very soon of the same experiment, but I wanted to show you a screenshot of what this bucket is actually looks like. As you can see from this shot here, there is very little water actually in the bucket. It is not even like half full. All right, so that is one problem here, which we shall see, that when they show us these experiments, first of all, it is done in a bucket, which is basically a container which is enclosed for the most part, at least on three sides, and it is never filled to the top with water. And when I show you what the Earth actually looks like, you'll come to the understanding that this is not even a poor representation of the Earth. It is actually no representation whatsoever.
So then why doesn't the water fall down? That's the thing. It is falling. But so is the bucket. Let's look back at that video in slow motion. After he pulls the bucket up in the first half of the swing, the bucket begins to fall. It just doesn't fall straight down. It falls this way. Since the water was already moving with the bucket, it keeps doing that. If a container and its contents are falling together, then there's no reason for them to come apart. If a container and its contents are falling together, then there's no reason for them to come apart. If a container and its contents are falling together, then there's no reason for them to come apart.
I will come back to this claim that if a container, please keep that in mind, that word container, and its contents are falling together, there's no reason for them to come apart. This is a very simplistic reasoning at best, and perhaps even disingenuous, as we shall see what this person does in the next clip.
Which is true even if they fall straight down.
So once again, this demonstration with this glass in the water, this person's trying to prove that if the container and the content fall together, they will not come apart. And he shows us with this glass filled with water. And, first of all, this demonstration is a little bit deceptive, I should say, because we are not shown the entire path of the glass and the water, what happens. And secondly, what will happen if you turn the glass upside down? When you're dropping it, or you drop it at an angle so that before it hits the ground, it is going to be, upside down or sideways. Will the content and the container still not come apart? And it is almost a certainty that they will. So this demonstration, it did not prove anything whatsoever. But I suppose what he's trying to say is that the reason why the waters on the Earth do not fly off and they do not separate from the surface areas, let's say, is because they are both moving at the same rate. That is a question I've actually asked many people, is why do the waters not fly off, like they should with any spinning objects? Anything that is not, glued to it, let's say, it is going to tangentially fly off the surface. Why does that not happen to the Earth's water? The answer given generally is a twofold answer. Number one, that it's the gravity of the Earth that holds the waters, clinging to the surface. And secondly, that the rate of the Earth's spin is not fast enough for the waters to fly off, as you see it happening on this tennis ball. Now I'm going to leave this idea of the waters not flying off the surface, flying off the Earth into space, because the Earth does not spin fast enough. I mean, generally, when you spin objects, as for example in a clothes dryer, the liquid does separate from the solid, and it flies off at an angle, and there is an angular velocity which is determined by the rate of the spin. And that we do not see happening on the Earth, and the reason given is that the rate of the Earth's spin is not fast enough. So 1,000 miles an hour is not fast enough for these waters to fly off. Be that as it may, that is not what I'm here to discuss. What I want to discuss is this idea of a container. The liquids need a container, or they would flow perpetually. That's what we are going to look at and examine in this video. Is the Earth a container like a bucket, or is it like basically an open vessel which has somewhat of a base or a floor, but really does not have any walls for the waters to be contained in?
If a container and its contents are falling together, then there's no reason for them to come apart.
The problem, as far as I can see with the globe Earth model, is that the globe Earth is not a container. Okay, and if it is not a container, how are all these waters that are all over the Earth, okay, the incredible volumes of water, how are they being contained? Moreover, what is it that curves these waters into a beautiful spherical shape, as we see in this picture, iconic picture of the blue marble? Waters or liquids will take the shape of the container that they are being contained in. And if there is no container, as we can see clearly, and I will prove to you in a minute that the Earth is not a container, especially when you look at the Pacific side, there is nothing to contain these waters. So what shape, how can they take the perfect shape of a ball? What is it that is causing them to curve and become spherical without being contained in a solid spherical container? See, most people do not think of this problem, because when they picture the Earth as a globe, what they picture subconsciously in their mind is that desktop globe that they might have on their desk at home or in their office, or the globe that they were, shown every day of the week when they were in school in their classrooms. Okay, it's like the one that you're looking at on the screen. This globe they can hold in their hands. Okay, it is solid. Even where the blue, which indicates waters, it is still a solid object, and therefore they are picturing the whole sphere of the Earth to be a solid container, which it is not. And although most people do not actually think of this problem of what the waters of the Earth are contained in, subconsciously, when they think of this at all, they will think of it something like the waters, for example, of the oceans, as a swimming pool, that there is a container in which they are being contained. That would make sense. It is logical. This is something that we see every day in our life. Water just doesn't hang in the air in a perfect spherical shape. It has to be contained in a glass, in a bowl, in a cup, in a swimming pool, in a bathtub, in a bucket. Okay, so it needs a container, and that's what they think of subconsciously. But let me show you what the globe Earth actually looks like. And the question I'm asking is, where is the container for all the waters that are on the Earth? So the globe Earth in reality looks like something like what you're looking at on the screen. Okay, this would be something like a bathtub or a soccer ball with about 3/4 of its patches missing. Yet we are expected to believe that the soccer ball would maintain its perfect spherical shape and still be fully inflated with air. Okay, in this, you can see on this picture here, the white areas of the sphere, that's all water. Okay, and the blue areas would be the containment walls. Now, you tell me, is this a container that looks like Swiss cheese that can actually contain any liquid whatsoever? So then the question becomes, what is it that the waters of the earth are being held in? And some people may still not be able to visualize this problem, so I'm going to show you a couple of other images to make it a little more apparent what this problem is that I am speaking about. All right, so let's take a look here at another image of the globe, which shows the Pacific Ocean side of it. Okay, and in this you can see clearly that basically one hemisphere of this Earth, of this globe Earth, is the Pacific Ocean pretty much, and it is all water. Okay, now the question is, the water assumes the shape of its container. Like you put water in a glass, it'll look like the glass. You put water in a cup, it'll look like a cup. You put it in a bowl, it'll look like a bowl. You put it in a bathtub, it'll look like a bathtub. In a swimming pool, it'll look like a swimming pool, etc. What it needs is container. It needs to have a container in which it is contained. Okay. Now this here is the water. This is all water. Yet there are no walls. There are no container. There is nothing. At the same time, we are told that it just is magically suspended in midair, because if there are no solid container walls for this ocean, like having a swimming pool without any walls, yet maintaining its perfect rectangular shape, this is the problem with this globe model, is how are these waters, number one, being contained, and secondly, how do they assume this perfectly spherical shape? Spherical shape because water, or any liquid for that matter, will assume the shape of its container. But if there is no container, how can they look like this? Okay, and the second problem, which is even bigger one, is that in this model there really shouldn't be any land, and I will explain that as to why that should be the case, that if this model were actually a real model, this was really what the Earth was like, with 3/4 of it being water and 1/4 being land. All the land should be submerged under the water, because the sheer volume of the water is so great that it cannot be contained by that minuscule amount of land, that the volume of the surface land is so small compared to the volume of the surface waters. So what I want to clarify here is that about the volume of the land as opposed to the volume of the waters. And basically what that means is that if you were to use all of the land that exists on the Earth and use it to construct a container or a vessel in which we would contain all the waters, mostly the waters of the oceans, but just generally speaking, all of the waters that are found on the Earth, both the salt and the fresh waters, the oceans, the seas, the lakes, the rivers, etc. If we were to construct a container, okay, this container could only hold about 30% of the actual water volume that exists. Okay, so it'll be like having a $30 gallon, 30 or 100 gallons of water, but 100 gallons of oil, but trying to fit it into a 30-gallon drum. It just wouldn't work. What would happen is that it would, of course, overflow. And the picture you can look at here is, to look at this visually, is that if you were to say you had a bathroom with a bathtub in it, okay, but the volume of water in there was the volume of the bathroom, not the bathtub. So would that bathtub then be submerged, or the sink or the toilet, any of the solids that are in that bathroom, would they be submerged or would they not be submerged? Of course, it makes sense that they would be submerged. And this is exactly what should happen, okay? That the container for all these waters is so small that there is no possible way that the container itself would not be submerged. Just like in a bathroom, as the bath water with the bathtub keeps overflowing and overflowing and overflowing, and it fills the whole bathroom, there is no possible way that that little container will not be overwhelmed by the volume of the water and will be completely submerged. And because there is such a disproportionate ratio in the volume of the actual container as opposed to the volume of the liquid or the water that it contains, that there is no possible way that in this model there should be any land whatsoever. Okay, it would be absolutely and completely and totally submerged, and all that would be left is water world, nothing else. Just in case somebody would still like to dispute the fact that the oceans and seas of this world do not have any containment wall and are basically just suspended in midair, which would absolutely and totally defy all laws of physics, just take a look at this picture again of this lake. Okay, like you can see clearly that, it's got clearly defined containment walls. It's got, it's like a bathtub, right? It's got a bottom, it's got walls, and the water's contained in it. Very easy to see. Now look at this globe model, okay, and look at the Pacific Ocean. Where are the walls for this massive, massive hemisphere of water? What shall we say, Australia? Is that the wall? Or is it like the coastline of the Americas? Is that forms a wall? Or maybe like, Japan or something? I don't see how, like, this little amount of land that surrounds it is sufficient to contain this massive, massive, massive volume of water. Okay, there is just not enough land in this earth, in this model, to build a container in which these liquids are contained, in which this water is contained. So therefore, the only explanation is that these waters essentially are just suspended in mid-air and magically suspended, because there is no physical explanation. There is no explanation in physics. Even about when they talk about the spinning, yes, you can spin liquids in a container. Remember that what the man said, that if they are both falling at the same rate, then the container and the liquid will not separate, but it has to be in a container. You can't just start spinning, like, when he was showing you that example with the bucket and the water spinning. Now ask him to do that experiment without the bucket. Okay, let's see then. And that is exactly what we are expected to believe, that not only is this water spinning, but it is just not even contained in any container whatsoever. I said at the beginning of this presentation, all I want to do is ask some, simple questions to which I have not really found the answer. And the question I ask once again is, where is the container for all the waters of the oceans and the seas that we have covering the face of this earth? And the second question I would have is, what is it that gives the earth its almost perfect spherical round ball shape? Water, as I said earlier, conforms to the shape of its container. Okay, if it's a glass, it'll look like a glass. If it's a bucket, it'll look like a bucket. If it's a bathtub, it'll look like a bathtub. But in the absence of a container, how is it that the waters of the earth are curved into a perfectly round spherical shape? Let me show you what I mean, okay? Now, if you look at this picture on the screen, let's say that the steel salad bowl is like one hemisphere of the globe Earth. And let's say this is the solid hemisphere, which can contain water. Okay, so we have a container to contain the waters and give it a spherical or a hemispherical shape. Now, across where I have drawn the red circle, let's say that's the Pacific Ocean. As you're looking at that, globe image on the screen of the Pacific Ocean. In this model of the globe, this hemisphere of the Pacific Ocean, there is no container. There is no walls. There are no walls. There is absolutely open air. That's all there is, okay? So in this case here, as opposed to the right hemisphere, which, as I said, is like a container, if it were like a container, we could allow that it can contain water. But on this left here, since there is no container, why is it that this hemisphere will also be perfectly spherically shaped like the right hemisphere, which is solid and has a shape. So where does the earth, the water parts of the earth, where do they get their spherical shape from without being contained inside of a container? That's my next question. That's my second question. Even at the expense of beating a dead horse, this is worth repeating. The water, or any liquid for that matter, does not have a shape. It is more or less, it does not have a three-dimensional shape, let's put it that way. It is more or less two-dimensional, like paper. Okay? What gives it a three-dimensional shape is the container that it is contained in. Like I'm looking at a water bottle, and the water in it, has assumed the shape of the bottle. But that does not mean that the water, if it was taken out of that bottle, would in its natural state have a three-dimensional shape. It does not. Okay? So in the absence of a container, something like a glass container or something like that, to hold all these waters in, how do they get to be so perfectly spherical, like we are always being taught that the whole earth is a beautiful round ball? But what makes these waters round? Okay, and that actually would apply to the land as well, because the land should not even also not be perfectly round, because of many factors which I don't want to get into here. But let's allow that the land can be. But what is it that makes these waters, which should be in their natural state flat and almost two-dimensional, what gives them this nice round three-dimensional spherical shape? So most people will say that these waters are spherical because of the Earth's spin. Now that does in itself raises more questions, because one thing that spinning objects do is that they fly off. If they are not being held within a container, then they will basically fly off into the air. That's what would happen. Okay, so it's like in a clothes dryer, for example. When the clothes are spun around, the water flies off the clothes and it drains out through the cylinder of the washing machine, and the clothes remain within the machine because, of course, they are being contained by the container. So this is what would happen, right? When an object spin, then they tend, depending on how fast they're spinning, they are going to fly off the surface, okay? And people say, when we ask that question, why does this not happen with the waters that are on the earth? Why do they not fly away? And the answer given is that the earth doesn't spin fast enough. Now you will see the inherent contradiction here. Now here, as you can see, like all these pictures that I've shown you of the oceans and the massive amounts of waters, and how they're perfectly, we are told that's a perfect round globe shaped and a ball that that they shape themselves into, whereas water in its natural state is two-dimensional. It can never ever shape itself into anything except that it is contained inside a container. All right, so that itself defies the law of physics, the laws of physics, that water cannot shape itself. It is a two-dimensional, it has two-dimensional properties in its natural state. Therefore, in the absence of a container, there is no possible way that these waters should be spherical. Now, when they say that, it is because of the spin. So at the same time, because the spin isn't fast enough, that the waters can actually fly away, how is it that they then become spherical? Like in a washing machine, for example, if the washing machine is moving very slow, you will, as it starts to build up speed, you can hear that the clothes kind of go flopping around in the machine, okay? Because they have not yet assumed that perfect ball shape, because the spin is not fast enough. So for these waters on the earth to assume a ball shape, okay, in the absence of a container, it is an impossibility anyhow. But let's grant that they do because of the spin. Would it not be necessary that the earth be spinning at such a tremendous speed that these waters would be perfectly shaped into a ball, that the whole earth itself would be shaped perfectly into a ball, that this, minuscule speed that they tell us that it's moving at, which is not even fast enough to, toss any of the water off the surface like we see with this tennis ball here, how is it then that it yet is so fast that it can form these bodies into a perfect ball shape? Okay, so these are the questions. Number one, like where is the container that these waters are contained in? Water has to have a container. It will find a container if it is not contained. If it is just in a place where there is nothing, no body to contain it, it'll keep flowing and keep spreading until it has found itself a big enough container. And that is what should happen, that the waters, because they are so much greater than the container, they should actually overwhelm the container and overflow the container so that the container, which is the land, would then be submerged in the waters. Secondly, in the absence of a container, waters cannot be shaped. Okay, waters need a container to give it shape. So then the question is, how do they, without a container to contain them in, become a perfectly spherical shape hanging off one hemisphere of the earth, from up the north to the south, without anything to contain them in, basically suspended magically in midair? And if it is because of the earth's spin, which again I would contend that it is an impossibility unless they were contained in a solid object, it would not happen. But let's allow that for a minute that they do, then the rate of spin of this earth would be so great that nothing would really stick to the surface. We would all go flying off into space, we would all become astronauts. But that is a contradiction here. On the one hand, we are told that the earth doesn't spin fast enough for it to throw any of the objects off it, or any of the objects like human beings and other things that are on the earth to go flying off into space, particularly the waters. Yet at the same time, the implied suggestion is that this earth is spinning so fast that it maintains its perfect ball shape, that it is spinning so fast that it is perfectly able to maintain its perfect ball shape. Now I hope you will watch very carefully this video of this washing machine, which is showing a wash cycle in which the clothes washing machine begins, and you can see that the clothes are kind of tumbling around while the speed is low. And as the machine spins faster and faster, the clothes in it begin to assume like more of a spherical shape. All right, and I suppose that is the principle that we are told is at work. That was why these waters are shaped into a spherical shape. Like, for example, the hemisphere of the Pacific Ocean, which curves perfectly into a semi-sphere and is almost like a perfect round, okay? But understand the problem here. If the earth is spinning that fast, like this washing machine is, what is happening in this washing machine? First of all, the water itself would fly away immediately, okay? And also the clothes, which are solid, they would not stay in the machine unless the machine had walls. See, there's a drum, there's a circular drum that is actually giving these clothes even a circular spherical shape. And without the absence of this container, what would happen to the water and the clothes? They will spin off. That's it. There's no way of preventing that from happening. That is a law of physics, and you cannot escape that law, whether it's clothes in a washing machine, whether it's water off a wet tennis ball, or whether it's the waters in the oceans of the earth. This principle must be, this law cannot be defied. Therefore, again, it brings us back to the question, where is the container? That unless these waters are contained in a container, no matter what, if you did spin them, they would not stay spinning. As a matter of fact, if they were spinning so fast that it would give it a circular or spherical shape, just like these clothes would fly off, I would contend that even like, the surface, land and the ground and the soil and the trees and everything would fly away. That's what should happen in the absence of something to contain everything, the land, the waters, everything else, in the situation where the earth is spinning. And if it is not spinning fast enough, then these things cannot have a spherical shape. Just like if you go back and watch this video of the spin cycle from the beginning of this spinning washing machine until it starts to spin really fast, the clothes are just kind of flopping around, right? And that is what should happen to the waters as well. They should be just flowing, not like, shaped into a ball, but rather they should flatten everything in their path. And that would again bring us back to the contention, to my understanding, that the lands should be submerged, because that would, the container in which these waters are being allegedly held is not big enough to contain them. So in this globe model, this is all these things, they defy the laws of physics. These problems, they have no solution. The only solution is that the earth is not a globe. Otherwise, it cannot. None of these things are possible that they tell us are happening. And certainly, if gravity is so strong that it can hold these spinning waters, not just hold them, sticking to the ground in a stationary earth, but at the same time, such force is exerted that it counters the spin of this fast-moving earth, which is shaping everything into a ball shape. It is able to counter that. That much force, my friends, it should be so great that it can control this massive volume of water that we find, for example, in the Pacific Ocean. Then none of us should be able to even move. Birds should not be able to fly. There should be no clouds hanging in the sky. All these things, they contradict these answers that are given. They are contradictory. What we observe with our own eyes, what we see every day on this earth, it contradicts everything that we are told about the globe model. Thirdly, the shape, if the gravity is not equal, okay, and because the earth is moving, like the mass is shifting, the center of gravity will shift. All these problems should lead to an earth not being shaped like a sphere, but perhaps like this, gravity map that they showed us, it should look like a potato. The earth should be like Mr. Potato Head. It shouldn't be a perfect, nice, like basketball shaped, round, beautiful blue marble. It should not happen. I hope that you will again think about these problems, that, these are questions to which there is no answer except one, that the earth is not a ball. Okay, these are questions which in my opinion are like, elephants in the room when it comes to this globe model. More than elephants, I think they were like behemoths and even more like leviathans. And these questions are not even asked. Did you ever hear any of these questions asked and answered in your physics class in high school or in college? No, these questions are not even asked, let alone given an answer for. But I think these are valid questions, because in the case of this earth, this is the only instance in which water behaves in a way that none of us can make it behave otherwise, okay? And if you really want to prove that this is exactly what it is, then instead of giving us mathematical equations, giving us calculus and non-Euclidean geometry, or, some other complex formulas, what we need to do is to be shown. And to show it is very simple, Just take one of these bowl types like what you see on the screen and fill it up to 200% of its volume. That's all. If you know all the variables, like, little g, big G, V, R, A, all the variables are known. Like this map that you're looking at, this is apparently a map of the earth formed, according to its gravitational field, by this satellite. It's a European Space Agency satellite. And we are told that this instrument is so sensitive that it's accurate within 1/trillionth, okay? Just think of that. These instruments are so accurate that they can measure gravity, etc., within 1/trillionth, okay? So if we do have instruments that are that accurate, if our knowledge is that good that we know all the mass, we know all the volumes, we know all the rate of spin, we know how it's accelerating, decelerating, what's the radius, what's the diameter, we know all the equations, all the variables are known, then all we need to do is plug in the numbers. And just like we are told that this is what's happening on the Earth, that the water is just magically floating in the space here that surrounds the Earth, where there is no land, there is no wall, there are no walls, there is no container, but the water is perfectly curved into a sphere with nothing absolutely for it to hold it in. And it is also, not a container that is giving it its shape. That should be repeatable, that we should be able to demonstrate through experimentation. And what will be required is, like I said, take a bowl like this and fill it up to 200% of its volume. That's it. I won't even ask for anything to be spun around or to moved up and down. And we haven't even discussed like the other motions of the Earth, because the Earth is not just only spinning or rotating on its axis, it is also revolving around the sun, apparently at 66,000 miles an hour. And all those motions, of course, are going to exert forces. And what these forces do, especially the spin of the Earth, what it'll do is it'll constantly be shifting the mass of these bodies of water, for example, so that the center of gravity of the Earth itself should be constantly shifting. And with all these motions going on, all this shifting taking place, there's absolutely no possible way, in my estimation, that anything should remain in its place, or it should be so perfectly spherical. It should be so perfectly round at all times. You see these NASA videos where the Earth is just gently meandering, and just rotating on its axis and nothing else is happening. That is not what the model of the solar system and of our universe teaches us. It is quite the contrary. Like I said, you have the motions of the solar system is moving, the galaxy is moving, the universe is moving, expanding. All these things are happening simultaneously. And if you were to take into account all of the forces that are then being exerted, there is no possible way that any of this should be possible. I think it is an impossible model. And it is not on the onus on people who believe, say, in flat Earth, which model is very scientific in that the Earth, we are told, is shaped like a bathtub filled with water. And we have the land masses that are anchored within it, like ships are anchored in water. So that is a scientific model. It obeys the laws of physics. It doesn't defy them. And therefore, which of these models is more reasoned and more scientific? Okay, I know which one is. So the onus of proof does not lie on the people who believe in flat Earth. The onus of proof would lie upon those who believe in the globe. So these are questions. Please ask yourself these questions and then demonstrate to us. Don't write in comments, this is V equals R squared minus whatever, C, and M equals G, and all those kind of, equations. Make a video, demonstrate us, show us a demonstration. You want me to show you a demonstration that water does not curve? I can open a faucet and water will flow straight down. It will not curve itself into a ball. And you can do that. You can do this experiment anywhere on the face of the Earth. Okay, you can look at the rain as it falls down. It is not going to stay suspended in midair like we're told the Pacific Ocean and all the oceans of the Earth are just water suspended in midair with nothing really to contain them. If that does not happen, the water will fall. If a river got too much volume, like in a dam or something, the water is more than the volume of the dam, it'll burst its banks and it will flow outwards until it finds level. Those are what the laws of physics teach us, And that is what we can see, observe, experiment, and see again and again and again, which is how these laws come about. But this law of the spinning earth and these waters magically staying in place, and even though the volume of the earth is so much smaller than the volume of the earth container is so much smaller than the waters it contains, these waters do not submerge the container. None of these things happen. So there is some kind of magical properties at work which we do not observe in our real physical world. If the force of gravity can hold the waters of the Pacific Ocean and counter the Earth's spin so they do not fly off, people on a ride such as one you see on the screen here, gravity should be able to hold them in. Why do they need to be strapped in when you go on these carousel type rides or on roller coasters, etc.? Why are people strapped in? Why doesn't gravity just hold them in place? You understand, like it can counter the spin of the earth and hold the waters of the Pacific in place. What is a little person like, in this carousel? But you understand the problem here, right? That once this carousel spins, unless you are strapped in, you are going to take a flight without a parachute, which is not advisable. And that, my friends, is the reality. That is physics. That is science. These are the laws of physics which are defied by this globe model from A to Z. Okay, now you decide for yourself whether it is this model that should be questioned, or we should start exploring other models like the flat earth model as the real models in which water is flat, it is contained in a container, and its properties, it does not defy. The properties of water in that condition do not defy the laws of physics. That is up to you. And I would say that it is only because of conditioning from the day we are born that we even think that any such thing as this globe earth, spinning globe earth, is possible, which is a truly impossible model. In conclusion, all I would say is that I hope that everyone will, take some time and think about these problems, okay? It might take a little bit of time for them to sink in. But once you begin to understand the magnitude of what the problems are with the globe model, you will soon begin to see that the problems with this whole globe model, with the model of the solar system, with the model of the Big Bang ever-expanding universe, these problems are so great that they defy logic, they defy reason, they defy all of the laws of physics, and therefore we can only believe them, we can only accept them by faith and indoctrination. That's why such heavy indoctrination is necessary, and when people question this, they are ridiculed, and it is because there really is no evidence and there is no science behind it. Think about it. Thank you for listening. This is Paul Sandhu.
In the beginning, God created the heavens, and God created the earth, and the earth was without form and void. Darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God said, "Let us make man in our image, and after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth." all they needed. More